At each significant stage on our journey or transition through life, we find that a new imprint is formed, like a handprint, a thumbprint, or even a scar. So what is a scar? It's an imperfection that carries within it a story. Scars gradually grow into a stronger patch of skin, always with a reminder of the initial hurt. Or scars are a proud reminder of having survived a painful ordeal. Like everyone here, I have scars, some more obvious than others. I have the scar above my left eye from when I was 9 years old. At the time, I lived in Saudi Arabia, and a bunch of neighborhood boys and I were throwing unripe bananas at each other. We were at war. One guy threw a rock and it hit me, causing my shirt to be covered in blood, my white shirt. And after I got home with 5 stitches in my head, each boy was frog marched around my house to apologize. One boy mumbled, "Sorry, I thought you were a boy." And funnily enough, so did I. Unfortunately, it's our external identity that defines us. In this day and age, there still exists an unreal expectation for men and women to look, dress, and sound a certain way. We know this to be unrealistic, yet we're socially coerced into trying to conform. And conforming gives no leeway if you happen to be a trans person, if you don't fit into the binary gender categories. The truth is, no one person is the same or nicely fits into a category. I was socialized as female for 30 years, to the world a girl, to myself an imposter. I struggled with this a lot. And don't get me wrong, I think women are amazing, I just never identified as one. I'm not alone in this struggle to conform to society's idea of normal and the pressure of living that lie, or in our vulnerability to verbal and physical attacks. So here's a shocking statistic for you. 41% of gender variant people will self-harm or attempt to take their own lives at some point. 41%. That's almost 1 in 2 people. And that's in comparison to 1.6% of the general population who will try and do that at some point. This tells us the magnitude of the problem for gender variant people. And through my work, I've been moved by the harrowing details of lives before, during, and after transition. The statistics confirm that the struggle is real, and I'm part of the statistic. I too made attempts on my own life, age 10 at the start of the wrong puberty. This is a picture here before the banana incident, so slightly before then, but check out my eyebrow as well. Age 15, this is slightly younger. Age 15, when I had very little respect for myself or anything that I put into my body. Age 25, when I hit my quarter-life crisis, wondering, what am I doing in this world and why don't I fit in? And then age 29, just before my medical transition. So I had no means to reveal this turmoil, even to my parents, and hearing about it only recently saddened them. I had struggled with my gender identity throughout my education and early career, and having graduated with a master's degree, I intensified my artistic output, which was both fulfilling and rewarding, and yet this wasn't enough for my self-expression. So my inability to address my gender issue gave rise to many other problems. I had panic attacks. I became terrified of death when others close to me took their own lives. And I became terrified of failure of life. So in the end, I took what seemed to be a very hard path. I began to talk without shame about my gender variance. Medical transition really was a do-or-die situation for me, as I'd exhausted all other options. And once I'd made my decision and vocalized this to a few people, I was desperate to start taking hormones. I was nearing 30 and I just couldn't wait 2 whole years for treatment on the NHS. I started injecting other people's testosterone prescriptions, and it was enough so that I sounded like I had a cold by the time I talked to my parents about it. And when that ran out, I bought cream from Australia, which immediately gave me greasy skin, and I also bought testosterone from a steroid website, which made me hormonally insane. I was a mess. So after many months of free-falling, I began supervised medical transition, finally, injecting prescribed hormones, desperately craving surgery, and yet feeling so alone. I discovered online vlogs, secretive support groups, but also society's negative or at best indifferent attitude towards gender variance. I had a decision to make. Should I keep as low a profile as possible and just concentrate on the personal challenges of transition, or should I also continue to work at correcting society's negative impression of trans people? I've always rooted for the underdog, and being a bit of a black sheep myself, I decided to keep sharing my experiences in order to connect with others. More scars, on this occasion, eagerly anticipated elective surgery, which was to drastically improve the quality of my life. This surgery was essential for me after years of restrictive, uncomfortable, but unavoidable binding of my chest. It was not at all taken lightly. This momentous decision would alter the course of my life forever, and I just couldn't bear another summer of discomfort. So I got my date for surgery and I booked my flight, and my mum at the very last minute booked a flight to be there with me too. And this was the first time that I truly felt that she was on board after quite a difficult year. The surgery actually made very little impact on whether I was perceived as male or not. It's not like I flashed my chest to everyone. But it drastically reduced the dysphoric feeling that I had. And I can't tell you how affirming it feels just to pull on a t-shirt in the morning. To me, my designer chest is perfect, scars and all. And it was a massive leap towards my authentic self. So, running in parallel with my medical transition, I began being filmed for a Channel 4 TV series called My Transsexual Summer. And whilst I was not altogether happy with the tendency towards sensationalistic tropes and being practically edited out of the program, it was a great insight into film production, and it showed me the power and influence of the media to mold perceptions and change attitudes. And I'm proud to say it was this show that started a dialogue with the nation. So afterwards, along with another of the contributors, Lewis Hancox, I began exploring how the trans community could be better and more accurately represented. We began making films together without compromise or dilution of the message. We're respectful, avoiding the usual cliches, surgery talk, makeup in the mirror, before and after images. And we ask the right questions, so when those viewing our films laugh, they're laughing with the participants, not at them. So I've discovered aspects of myself in every single person that I film. And these films have impacted a wider non-trans audience because of the humanistic aspects of the individual's lives, passions for art, skateboarding, photography, music, poetry, fashion. Trust is key, and Lewis and I are both given a high level of trust. Many contributors have stated that they wouldn't have exposed their vulnerabilities through anyone but us. So trust is particularly pertinent when we visit our younger contributors, and luckily future generations of trans people, trans youth, have improved access to support services from a far earlier age. However, Mermaids, which is the national support group for trans youth and their families, say unofficially that 75 to 80% of their trans teens have no support. This may be because the teens have not had the courage to talk about it to their parents due to the way their parents may have spoken on the subject in the past, or some have tried to get support and have been rejected. So part of our remit has been to challenge negative beliefs and create a more understanding climate in which young people and their families can thrive. Attitudes do change, and it can take some time for families to adjust. Remember, it took my mum just over a year, and now she's one of my biggest supporters. So since taking part in My Transsexual Summer, my involvement as a gender documenter and trans activist has been non-stop. This year I've had that warm feeling like something really pivotal is happening. I felt giddy and I felt happy whilst helping to host Tedxbrighton this year, a 3-day event. Yeah. And also, this is Ruth Hunt here as well, and I got to attend a brilliant meeting for Stonewall where we were talking about how to add the T onto Stonewall's remit, which was fantastic. And after that, through All About Trans, we made 25 short films at the beginning of this year, all about gender variance, which we had a big celebration at Channel 4 and the BBC. And after that, we worked again with All About Trans to create 8 short films through Gyros to develop an online e-learning resource to help health professionals and those working in education. And these are the only films of their kind at the moment, which is very exciting. I also designed and contributed to Brighton Transformed, which is a really fantastic book featuring local stories of trans people, plus really striking images by Sharon Kilgannon. I'll let it run through because the visuals are exciting. But yeah, so I worked on a book and a number of books this year as well. And we ended up projecting these images 20 feet tall at a building very close to here during Trans Pride. And it was really, really striking and really powerful to see that. And that's the book, Brighton Transformed there. There's my ugly mug. And that's the images being projected, and it was really special to see. So a momentum is building, and there's a growing appetite for information and understanding. For the past 3 years, I've had engagements with influential media professionals as well. By being part of the media, we can influence gatekeepers constructively to broadcast sensitive and accurate content. So through All About Trans, I've worked with The Observer, the Daily Mail, and more recently the Sun newspaper, to help journalists realize that there's no such thing as the sex swap or the surgery or being born a man, being born a woman, but also just to give them a humanistic reference point of what it's like to be trans. You know, it's so simple, so basic. And it's my hope that soon all of this work, my films, the newspaper articles, will become completely and utterly obsolete, outdated. I look forward to a time where there won't be media harassment of trans people, usually during the most vulnerable time of their lives, at the start of their transition. And being trans will kind of just become a non-issue in some ways. Like many, I believe that our gender and our sexuality are spectrums, and every one of us identifies somewhere along these lines. It is psychologically damaging to not be recognized for who you are in such a basic and fundamental way. And rather than cringe over lost time, I relish the experiences that I've had. We're all so much more than our truly magnificent physical constructs. We all know what it's like to be treated a specific way based upon our appearances, based on local, cultural, social beliefs and traditions. Medical and social transitioning has given me a great empathy for a wide range of people. I know how it feels to have monthly pains, to feel hormonally off balance, breasts and all the rest. I know what it's like to feel to be ogled in the street, to be looked up and down, to feel uncomfortable for bearing flesh, to have to cross the street and show bravado, living in fear of guys who may not realize how intimidating they're being, and that's only when I was being perceived as a woman. So imagine what it's like for someone who is socialized as female, dressed as a guy, about to go into the gents' toilets for the first time. And I have to say that's one of the worst things about transitioning is the guys' toilets are pretty disgusting, aren't they? So once I started my second puberty, I was just like a teenage boy. Anxiety, embarrassment, appetite, hiding away in my room, everything. And like pregnant women, trans guys also experience a bit of water retention, but I had 2 years of that, not just 9 months, not to mention the hot flushes. So I'm made up of all my experiences, and many hands, many aspects propel me to continue to be the sensitive person that I am today. For me, scars have served as benchmarks or mile markers along life's journey. All different scars, scars of the skin, scars of the heart, accidental scars, and self-inflicted scars. Laverne Cox talks about the tipping point this year on Time magazine. She's from Orange is the New Black. And also Paris Lees, lovely Paris Lees, she said that 2014 is the year that we no longer feel the need to apologize. She says, it's a really exciting year for trans activism. It's been building up for a few years. But this is it. This is the tipping point. And people are talking about this now. And I think that as a trans person, it's easy to think that something's happening. But I think that people on the outside are realizing that. This is a thing now. This is getting talked about. It's happening. This is our moment, 2014. Thank you, Paris. I absolutely agree with this because trans rights are human rights. And somewhere along my journey, the panic attacks did cease, and I stopped hating every single cell in my body. I found my resting place within the fluidity of gender. And when I found self-acceptance, the rest of my world aligns with me too. And now I may have the social stigma of a body which still doesn't yet conform and may never conform to that of society's standards. But we should never lose sight of the fact that we're all different. But equally, we should recognize how the differences which separate us can be both useful and a sign of our maturity as a species to embrace. Thank you.